Rosie said Trump went bankrupt. I never went bankrupt. She'll say anything that comes to her unattractive mouth.
Rosie's a failure. She's always been a failure. Her shows all go down the tubes. How they thought she'd work on The View, ridiculous. The show is a big, big miss.
She came to my wedding. She ate like a pig. And seriously, the wedding cake was like missing in action. Rosie's a person that's very lucky to have her girlfriend. And she better be careful or I'll send one of my friends over to pick up her girlfriend. Why would she stay with Rosie if she had another choice? I've always felt to myself, she's a degenerate. She shouldn't.
Wait a minute.
She's not. No, but I really understand. I really understand her. I've known her.
You can't just say she's a degenerate.
Oh, really? Just watch her.
She's also very critical of beauty pageants, calling them, and I quote, where women were paraded around, judged valuable or not by old white men.
If you looked like Rosie, you'd be critical of beauty pageants too. Believe me. Rosie is a very unattractive woman, both inside and out. And as hard as it is to believe, inside is probably uglier than outside, and that's really saying something.
Look, Rosie's a loser.
Donald Trump and Rosie O'Donnell's feud has always been a two-way street. And while Rosie has often used satire to lampoon Trump, Trump has been equally relentless in exposing Rosie's vulnerabilities, failures, and contradictions. What makes Trump's side of the feud so striking is that he doesn't just insult her, he frames her career missteps and public controversies as proof that she is, in his words, a stone-cold loser. Whether one agrees with him or not, Trump's attacks have consistently highlighted Rosie's struggles in a way that turned her into one of his favorite rhetorical punching bags. From the very beginning, Trump zeroed in on Rosie's professional failures. He mocked the collapse of her magazine, pointing out that it folded under lawsuits and financial losses. He described her as someone who folded up like a tent, a vivid image that painted her as incapable of sustaining success. For Trump, Rosie wasn't just a rival. She was an example of what happens when someone talks big but can't deliver. By hammering on her failed ventures, Trump exposed the gap between Rosie's public persona as a strong, outspoken celebrity and the reality of her uneven career trajectory. Trump also attacked Rosie's talk show, gleefully celebrating its cancellation. He tweeted that her show was dead and couldn't survive with such poor ratings. In Trump's world, ratings are the ultimate measure of worth, and by pointing to Rosie's declining audience, he positioned her as irrelevant. The exposure here is brutal. Rosie, who thrived on being in the spotlight, was portrayed as someone whose audience had abandoned her. Trump's framing turned her career struggles into evidence of her supposed lack of talent, and he repeated this theme so often that it became a central part of his feud with her. Beyond career failures, Trump exposed Rosie's public image as abrasive and confrontational. He famously said she talks like a truck driver, a line that stuck because it captured the perception of Rosie as brash and unfiltered. While Rosie embraced her bluntness as authenticity, Trump reframed it as vulgarity, suggesting that her style alienated people rather than winning them over. By repeating this insult, Trump painted Rosie as someone who lacked class and professionalism, undermining her credibility as a cultural commentator. In Trump's telling, Rosie wasn't witty or sharp, she was crude, and that crudeness explained why her projects failed. Trump also exposed Rosie's tendency to make herself the center of political and cultural battles. When she protested outside the White House with Broadway performers, Trump's allies mocked her as desperate for attention, suggesting that she was clinging to relevance by attaching herself to anti-Trump activism. For Trump, Rosie's activism wasn't noble, it was opportunistic, a way to stay in the headlines after her career had stalled. By framing her protests as self-serving, Trump exposed what he saw as Rosie's hunger for the spotlight, even when it meant turning serious political issues into theater. The feud reached its most public exposure during the 2016 Republican primary debate, when Trump interrupted Megyn Kelly to clarify that his insults about women applied only to Rosie O'Donnell. That moment was revealing not just because Trump singled her out, but because he used her as a symbol of everything he claimed to despise: failure, vulgarity, and irrelevance. By making Rosie the exception, Trump exposed how deeply she had become embedded in his narrative. She wasn't just another critic, she was the critic he wanted to define as the ultimate loser. In Trump's framing, Rosie wasn't simply a rival, she was the embodiment of failure. Even in lighter moments, Trump used humor to expose Rosie. At the Al Smith dinner in 2016, he joked that after listening to Hillary Clinton rattle on, he didn't think so badly of Rosie anymore. The joke worked because it played on Rosie's reputation as someone who talked too much, turning her into a punchline in a broader political roast. Trump's ability to weave Rosie into unrelated contexts showed how he had successfully branded her as a cultural shorthand for annoyance and failure. Every mention was an exposure, a reminder to his audience that Rosie was, in his words, a loser. Trump's nephew even chimed in, describing Rosie as not a funny person and unpleasant. These anecdotes reinforced Trump's narrative, exposing Rosie not just as a failed entertainer, but as someone disliked personally. By bringing family into the feud, Trump expanded the exposure beyond professional critiques, suggesting that Rosie's flaws were obvious to anyone who encountered her. The message was clear: Rosie wasn't just failing in her career, she was failing in her relationships and public persona as well. What makes Trump's exposure of Rosie so effective is its consistency. He never let the feud die, always finding new ways to bring her up and remind people of her failures. For Trump, Rosie became a symbol, a recurring character in his larger story about winners and losers. By keeping her in the spotlight, he ensured that her name was associated not with her achievements, but with his insults. The exposure wasn't just about Rosie, it was about reinforcing Trump's worldview, where success is measured by ratings, deals, and dominance, and where